Welcome back to StoryDads, everyone. Today, Micah and I are discussing DreamWorks' Shrek. This spawned a ton of new movies, a bunch of sequels, a bunch of spin-offs, and this is, I think you're going to see as you listen to this conversation, surprisingly deep movie. As much as it plays with and pokes fun of a lot of stuff, it's all based on some really valuable themes like you don't even realize you need to know going into this, but you just kind of take for granted. So I think you're going to know some fun things that. So stay tuned for that, and thanks for being with us as we discuss Shrek. Oh, hey there, Micah. How's it going?
Oh, good, Eric. How are you?
I'm good. Ready to jump back into another episode of StoryDads?
Yeah, let's go. I'm ready for this one. You just said in the pre-roll there that like you didn't expect to encounter as much merit, depth.
Well, I mean, okay, so we're talking Shrek today, and there's a lot of like it's all about the archetypal stuff that's like they're just playing with stuff throughout it, and it started this like train of movies that's kind of annoyingly cynical, but it was kind of fun in this one. But I just we'll tee it up and dig into more depth too. But I think there was a lot there that I wasn't kind of expecting.
So let me frame it up a little bit. So Shrek, I think everybody's super familiar with it by now. It was an absolute cultural phenom. And like it, you know, what's weird about it is it catapulted a couple of specific songs into front of mind, major cultural milieu that never were before. Some of them deservedly, some of them not so much, right? So, you know, Hey Now You're an All-Star is like this one-hit wonder, you know, just such a campy...
So but I got it because I loved All Star when it first came out, when it was on the radio. I was in that perfect demographic, man. I was 6th grade, 7th grade, starting to discover like rock music and stuff that was my own, but it was like this blend of like poppy whatever. And it's so I was a fan of All Star before it was on Shrek, and I always thought that was like kind of a big deal, you know, in my 13-year-old mind, right?
Well, and it was like an MTV buzz clip, and it was top 40, you know, it like did its thing, and it was
cool. It was so catchy, and it was so hooky, and it was in like a stretch of different movies. Like, did you ever see Mystery Men?
Yes.
You remember Mystery Men?
I love that. Paul Rubens. Amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing movie. No one's seen it. It's weirdly dark, and like it's just the tone.
It's such a grunge Gen X thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But there's a training montage in the middle of that movie that they set to All Star because it's a great spot for that. I remember at the end of Rat Race they do All Star where they all meet on stage with Smash Mouth and they perform All Star as they roll the closing credits. But
so it's a little bit like the current version of this is like Imagine Dragons.
Okay.
Like that one track that they have that's licensed for everything. I think it's in World Cup commercials right now. It just somehow it like hits this. Yeah. It's like vibed perfectly for an era. Yeah. And it just goes with it to every party, to every event.
Yeah.
And so, but that was okay. So this is endemic of this era as well. We have like Tim Burton is hitting mainstream. We have, you know, Mystery Men. We have this weird amalgam of like alt rock that like rock hasn't been the #1 genre since this time period.
No.
And in this time period, you had all these emerging, like very new rock sounds that overtook pop, you know. They were vying with, because at the time gangster rap and like indie hip hop was, you know, doing its thing.
There was kind of that new metal rap thing that was going on right before that. Yeah.
Yeah. And there was like pop punk, and there was some, you know, there were like ska bands that were top 40, which is like the least ska thing or punk thing imaginable to be like popular. And
those were also my favorite back in that day too.
Yeah. So this movie has that vibe as well, because it's this sort of counter-cultural, like funky, you know, I'm gross, but you have to put up with me and like me anyway. Kind of, you know, that grunge quality that was like very maybe early, like late millennial or late Gen X, early millennial sort of like.
That's interesting thinking about All Star as kind of encapsulating that, like Shrek's energy as this grunge guy, but you got to put up with me because the Smash Mouth was like a total stoner rock band in their first album, and then the next album comes out and it's All Star, and it's just like super poppy, like radio hits all over it, and it's kind of like this grungy ogre guy coming to the mainstream to be like, I'm like the new thing, and you're gonna make 5 movies with me now, and it's crazy.
Well, so this movie is based on a book written by William Steig, he was born in the 1900s, like the aughts, right? And so this book he wrote, you know, when he's in his 60s, he was a major New York Times cartoonist.
Yeah.
And then he was like, you know, forget all this advertising stuff. I'm going to do children's books. So he does children's books. So Shrek is a children's book. That is, you know, vaguely similar to the adaptation. It was optioned by Steven Spielberg in the early 90s.
Okay.
And then was when SKG DreamWorks started, and S in SKG is obviously Spielberg. DreamWorks got the rights to it for $500,000.
Yeah.
They took it and they brought in a couple of writers, Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio. Terry Rossio is I think most known for the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, which again, never would you imagine the children's book Shrek or like the Pirates of the Caribbean ride becoming these massive franchises.
Massive hits.
And then he was also, I think, one of the early writers on Godzilla vs. King Kong, which I storyboarded.
Okay.
And his script was so good.
Yeah.
And they went through numerous rewrites. And at the end, the last rewrite was more or less like kind of stripping it back to Terry's original screenplay because it was such a good one. And so like his talent and his contribution to this whole franchise, I don't think can be overstated. But anyway, it started as this children's book that had, you know, critical acclaim. I don't know if it was like a runaway bestseller, but it had a lot of critical acclaim because of this idea of it being about someone ugly and destructive. But even in the children's book, and I think this is the theme of where I want to go with it, is like despite its trappings and its cynicism, at its heart, it still is an archetypal story, even though it's presented in the negative.
Yeah. Well, so it I think at its core, there's 2 main themes, which is it's about accepting the outsider, right? He's the one who's not part of the kingdom. Everyone's trying to push him away. Eventually they see like, you know, they make Shrek the champion and he becomes the person who he's outside the kingdom, and then he becomes a big part of it. And even the whole story kicks off with like, he's trying to get everyone out of his swamp. He wants them out of his stuff. So it is a movie about like accepting the outsider, but at the same time, it's resistant, and it's kind of poking fun at like all these archetypes, the hero archetype, the princess archetype, all that. But at the end of the day, it's still like, despite all our weirdness, they still try to fit into the archetype, right? We haven't totally deconstructed it and thrown these things out like they don't matter. At the end of the day, like, and we'll get to it more when we come to the end of it. But like with him and Princess Fiona, it's like, we're not the standard knight and princess, but we still work our best to fit into those roles, which I think that is the role of like retelling stories. Is they're not so high archetypal that like they're inaccessible, like it takes it to like this specific quirky characters, and how do these people fit into these higher archetypes?
Right. And it ultimately is a story where it's instead of it like embrace the other and like he's queering heroism or whatever, it's a story where it's, you know, judge me by my character and not by my skin.
I see.
It ultimately isn't, I think, what people, especially critics, wanted to make of the book and wanted to make of it.
I see.
Like, he's the other and the unwanted. He's the oppressed, and it's like, no, he's just a fish out of water, which is the hero.
I mean, he is. So look, he is the one outside the city. He is the one who, it's like, you know, the ogre at the edge of the city is like a threat to everyone. And so like, he's the other that we don't see, we don't understand. And so like, I think that's the stuff, like the demographics of Shrek in that way kind of fit what people want to latch onto with that story. But then at the end of the day, it does become about like, look, wipe away all what you see in the demographics, is he's the one that doesn't fit, and he's the one striving for like the good and the caring and the all the archetypal heroic stuff that beat more than anyone else. And it's about them coming to see that.
Yeah. And he really is nothing more than an exaggeration of being fish out of water. They just take all of the things that would make a hero and just exaggerate his beginning point of his arc. It's ultimately not any different than, say, like a Luke Skywalker, where you go, well, if you imagine the hero of the galaxy, like the shining knight of the galaxy, the thing farthest from it is an orphaned farm boy that whines about going to Tashi Station. And
right.
Despite what he says, is scared to leave home.
Right.
And so if you just exaggerate that further, you go, okay, well, now the farm boy is actually like a monster. And he lives in a swamp, and he also doesn't want to leave home. He's forced to. And if his end point is being king of a kingdom surrounded by a community of people that adore him, well, then the opposite point of that arc is to start with someone who refuses to be liked, refuses to have friends, and refuses to have community. So like the demographic aspects of Shrek are really nothing more than an exaggeration of trying to make that character arc as dramatic as possible, which is good writing. And so Shrek comes along, and what do we find out about him? We find out that he actually does want friends. He just doesn't think he's worthy of them. He actually does want love. He just doesn't think he's worthy of it. He actually does want community. He just is so afraid of rejection that he pushes it away. So it's not that he really is this horrible thing that actually thrives on those things. That's just the mess that it's his cope for not confronting his
definitely. I mean, it does have the pushing aside the social constructs of you're an ogre, so you're supposed to hate people. You're supposed to be like happy being in the swamp, and that's what he's living in. And it's about him kind of recognizing that that's not how I have to live.
Right. Yeah. And it's through the process of this adventure and this journey that he discovers these things about himself. And it starts out of a place of necessity because
it starts out of a place of like resentment. I think.
It's that he just wants the status quo back.
Yeah. Get these stupid people out of my house. Like, I don't want to help them. I want to get rid of them. I'm going to go talk to the king and tell him to figure out something to get rid of these losers.
Yeah. So he gets thrust into being the spokesperson for all the other fairy tale creatures. And this is where it's useful to talk about, the movie. I think, again, it's sort of like after we watched Frozen, and I thought, I think it kind of gets a bad rap from its critics that are overemphasizing the wrong parts of it. Whereas Frozen ultimately was a story about finding true love and about like Christian virtues of self-sacrifice and loving so much you'd lay down your life for them. And that love overcomes fear. These are scriptural themes in Frozen, when it got this rap as sort of this, like, I don't need no man kind of thing. But Kristoff does come and, he's Han Solo. He comes and saves the day with his rickety ship. But Shrek gets this rap as being the cynical take on fairy tales. And I don't think it is. I think what it actually is just, again, it's playing opposite and it's utilizing stereotype and cliche. And, we've talked before about some of the fundamentals of screenwriting, which is, when you're composing dialogue, it should be doing one or more of three things, which we talked about in that clip that went viral. But the other thing that's a no-no, so we know one thing you should do, which is plot, develop character, make a joke, or pick two or three. The thing you should not do ever is cliche. And so even if you're a novel writer, you never want to write the phrase quick as a flash, right?
Okay.
Or all of a sudden, these are cliches and they're obvious and they're completely uninteresting. And so a good author is never going to write quick as a flash. They just wouldn't, because they know that's the most boring thing I could put there. You want surprises everywhere. And so what this movie does brilliantly is it takes every single cliche and it includes them, but it messes with every single one.
Yeah. I think that's where, because I'm kind of in between it. I think the criticism is, I think there's some legitimacy to it about it being cynical, because I think it, in a lot of ways, was the start of just starting to like pick at and poke fun of it. And I don't think it crosses any major lines here, but it feels like it kind of starts the snowball going of like, picking at, I'm gonna subvert this character, I'm gonna mess with this thing, I'm gonna be critical about this. It's a kids movie. They sure say damn and hell a lot in that, and they're just kind of like pushing the limits on some of this stuff. Even like, the princess that doesn't want to be rescued, but she can kind of kick butt on her own, and like, and look, I have no problem with those ideas there, but I think it's the people, I think, who get annoyed about this stuff, like they see how far these things had progressed, and it's like, all right, like I do think Shrek kind of started some of playing with that.
Yeah, I think it plays with it, but I think the ultimate end is the princess does want to be rescued.
Yes,
she does.
Yeah. No, it doesn't. I think I have no criticisms of the movie in and of itself and the way it does it in the storylines. It just, and I think there is some necessary like I'm here for like let's play with the norms and let's explore some of these things and see what truth comes out of that. And I think that is actually incredibly important and useful, right? It now people will take that and go to totally let's deconstruct all these things and say none of this stuff really matters.
And that is, I think, what qualifies this is one of those things where it's like an accent on a canon. And so without a canon that has firm foundation, that's very concrete. This story, if all the stories do this, well, now it doesn't work anymore because you've eliminated the thing that made the joke work. And it's almost like, there's this, I think I mentioned this before, but there's this avant-garde play called Black Rider, and Tom Waits does the soundtrack, and it's super weird and klezmer and all that. And it's so avant-garde. Even the plot is so disjointed and the dialogue is weird and everything. And it's supposed to be done in this way that's also very deconstructed and janky and full of like Brechtian abjection and because it's deconstruction on deconstruction on deconstruction on deconstruction, there's no frame of reference for you to hang on to. And then it just becomes this like potpourri of it's just a mess. Yeah. And so if you're going to do something super avant-garde, you got to put it in the most dry, understandable, like if it happened in a farmhouse in rural Kansas, and everyone looked like they were these stereotypical characters, then you can invert it and
then you can start tweaking with some of the stuff, right?
Yeah, and then I can follow it, and then your inversions actually have meaning. But if you're inverting an inversion and inversion, it's like if someone uses a sentence with quintuple negative, you go, wait, so it isn't not good that much better than worse? Like, what did you just say? But so the fact that there is a cohesive narrative that has been built up at great.
So what you're getting at there is because everyone knows Pinocchio and Three Blind Mice and Little Red Riding Hood and all these fairy tales that are like so well entrenched, you can do this thing where you throw them all together and kind of play with them and see some of the quirky parts in them and kind of make fun, but also like there's still a respect to those stories, right? Versus if you just strip out all these stories and none of these stories mean anything and there's not that cultural cohesion of these things, you can't tell Shrek then.
Right. If Snow White means something different to every person, then you can't make Shrek anymore. And so since this movie came out, I don't know if parents read nursery rhymes to their kids anymore. Like I in hindsight, I realize I've never done Hickory Dickory Dock or Three Blind Mice with my kids. It's kind of gone. And so he didn't know who the Three Blind Mice were. He's like, who the heck are these Three Blind Mice? It's like, well, there's my litmus test that I'm sort of failing at maintaining the canon. You know, these rhymes have been around for centuries, and
it is true. Like you can't have the jokes and make fun of the things and certainly get them or have your kids access that if like those things are just kind of being lost. And I think that's a good illustration of it. Shows that even in the spoofing of these things, there's value in them because it shows how the original thing is important, right?
And I think you see that with, the most heightened intellectual critics of literature and all the postmodern critical theorists that have deconstructed all of literature and society. And they're the most humorless people out there. Yeah. And maybe that's part of why is there's no basis to make a joke when there is no meaning to play with or invert. And I wonder even about, like for a long time, the DC Comics movies were so serious, and they were sort of retelling all of these origins where, Batman is like just a guy with a lot of money, and it sort of makes him so human that he's no longer like the great man, because part of the whole postmodern deconstruction is to eliminate the idea of the great man. And so even Superman is he's more flaw than virtue, and those movies were also really humorless. But then you see something like, all of the Marvel movies for the most part have been really entertaining and funny, and even the bad ones are still funny, or at least fun. For all the virtues of the Dark Knight, especially the second and third Christopher Nolan Batman movies, there's nothing funny in them. Like I didn't leave any of those. I might have thought they were intense or cool or something, but I didn't walk out going, that was a riot. Like that was so much fun. And even like the worst, like Thor Dark World, it's still got some fun to it. So I wonder how long Shrek works. And so maybe it's worth down the road we watch more of them, because frankly, I have not sat through beginning to end any of the Shrek movies other than the first one. I've only seen pieces of them.
Yeah, I think I did early when like Shrek 2 and 3 came out, but like 20 years ago, whatever it feels like. Maybe not that long, but it's, it's also interesting because it's, I talked about how the movie is about borders and the outsider and pushing boundaries. And the movie kind of goes in and out of a bunch of different genres. Like there's lots of genre blending in this movie. Like there's a real heavy rom-com thing with Shrek and Fiona. There's the hero's journey archetype of Shrek being called to be this knight who goes saves the princess, but is kind of cynical and doesn't do that and ultimately accepts the call towards that. There's like horror sequences in there. There's all sorts of like
there's the buddy kind of comedy. With Eddie Murphy,
Shrek and Donkey. And it would be very, it shows how well they executed it, because it'd be very easy for it to just feel like an incoherent mess or just like a series of like Looney Tunes episodes, but like they hold it together as a standalone film here.
And again, they held together because they stuck to genre. So they hit all of the beats necessary to tell a good hero's journey, buddy story, romantic comedy. But the framework, the setting in which they did it was just a photographic negative of all of the cliches and stereotypes that we're familiar with, which kept it fun, because anytime you encountered one of these characters that you're familiar with, you knew it was going to be, there was some surprise coming. But that's, again, only because they come from such a firm foundation. And so that's like...
Well, and I was going to say, that's the thing I think for our audience, if you go back and rewatch Shrek, to just be mindful of how much like it works for you. You don't even realize it, but it's because like these archetypes and these fairy tales are just so deeply entrenched in your knowledge. The idea of first love's kiss changing you into your true form, like that's in a ton of that's Princess and the Frog. That's like there's tons of stories along those lines. That, and that works in a story like Shrek. All the goofy, funny, like just gags that are there, they only work. Like if you go back and rewatch Shrek, notice how many things only work because you have some prior knowledge of that, especially when you're watching that with your kids. Have one quick break from the show. A couple reminders here. First off, like we always say, make sure to comment, subscribe, let us know your thoughts, give us some suggestions on movies you hadn't thought of before, and go ahead and leave us a review. Those things help us out a lot. We are coming up on episode 60. I think this is episode 58, and those things really help stoke the fire so more people can get to see this. We can keep doing it. We're loving it. We want to keep it going, so help us out with that. And thanks for being with us. Back to Shrek.
Right. And it's a foundation and an edifice built with great effort over massive amounts of time. And it allows for this fun to riff on these ideas. And if you riff long enough or the foundation goes away, then it no longer functions. It's a little bit like, Weird Al, I don't think he comes out with albums anymore. And part of it's because we don't have, and maybe I'm just old and out of touch, but it seems like we don't have these pillars of mainstay radio hits anymore.
Yeah.
Because it is so diversified now.
Right.
I don't ever hear any songs that the kids at the youth group at my church or whatever, I have no idea what music they listen to.
Yeah.
Because it's not the only thing we all hear anymore.
Right.
And we also don't all watch the same sitcom at 8 p.m. on Friday night. And so we don't have that in common anymore. And so a little bit of I think the shame of the diversification, even the democratization of the technology and the streaming and everything, is that the only thing we have in common anymore that happens in real time is sports and politics.
Right.
And so I really wonder how much of the modern discourse that is so vitriolic is partially because it's just these two reality shows, the only thing we have in common.
Yeah.
When I see somebody on Monday, we didn't both experience Seinfeld in real time.
Right.
You know, when Stranger Things comes out, well, I have two small kids, so I don't get to sit and binge watch the thing. So I show up on Monday and one person has seen 4 episodes and one person watched them all. And then I just watched the first one. And so we can't talk about it. We don't have it in common.
And there is kind of a thing like, I don't want to talk to you about it because I don't want any spoilers because you've seen more about it. So like, I don't want to get into that stuff. Like I know that feeling of like, I'm really excited to watch this thing, but I don't want to ruin it for everyone. So I'm just like holding on to this stuff. And now we don't engage.
Right. And then even just before a movie comes out, there used to be 3 places that you could hear about it, you know, with some kind of preview. And now there's a million previews, depending on who you're following, on which platform and what they front loaded you with. And so we don't get any fresh experiences simultaneously. And so between that and the erosion of canon, everyone's just lost. It's just 330 million ships adrift.
And it is interesting. And I'm curious what they're going to do with it. Cause I know Shrek 5 is slated to come out in 2027, which I didn't realize until just like doing some research on this. Like, oh, there is a new one coming out. And the spoof, the timely stuff that they do, like, is it going to be just super niche for a certain amount of people? Like, what is the, like, Shrek doing WWE fights with all the knights to, like, not everyone knows or is aware of, you know, those moves and how they go. Like, there's not that, it's not, it can't be taken for granted that all of the audience will know all the references there. And Shrek is built on, like, modern references.
Right. And now we can't even know if everyone will be familiar with the classical references that they use. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes. You know, I am amazed that Shrek has done so well. And it's such I think I was looking and I got to verify this, but I think it won the first ever Academy Award specifically for an animated film.
Oh, that's interesting.
But I can't be sure.
Well,
I know animated films won Best Picture before, but I think they created the category in 2001. But I might be wrong.
Best animated. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I'm sure animated films had won Oscars prior to that, but
it was Snow White, Best Film.
Mm-hmm. I do think, because I kind of want to go back and explore a little bit, because the cynical kind of punching, not punching, like poking fun at fairy tales, at some of these ideas, right? But they still keep a fun attitude about it. And then they juxtapose that with like what we talked about in the Wreck-It Ralph 2 episode, where it just feels like you're not just kind of poking fun at these things in like a lighthearted way. Like, it actually genuinely feels like you don't like these movies and these stories that are there.
Right.
I want to explore the two ways of approaching that, because it's two very distinct things there.
That comparison came up for me too, because we were talking about like the princess waiting room scene in Wreck-It Ralph Breaks the Internet, and how it really was like we hate our lot in life, we hate ourselves, we hate our stories, we're embittered, and here's the cliche of how we get out of this. And then the movie proceeds to actually kind of do the cliche, but in a way that denigrates the hero and is like just awful. And in this one, it is more playful. Like, it doesn't make inhuman monsters out of anyone except Farquaad. And it's because he's a real piece of crap. Like, he's a bad person. And he's self-aggrandizing. You know, he has all of these qualities that are obviously evil, or at least bad to anyone watching it. And so it sets up a very archetypal villain. He's power hungry and egotistical.
They just let him be bad for being bad's sake. You know, he's goofy. Yeah. He has the dialogue with the gingerbread man doing that. So he can be funny, but he's still like, it's under this menacing whatever, you know?
Yeah. And they still promote virtue in Shrek. He still needs to face his inner demons, overcome them, to do something uncomfortable and to force him into a place that is greater than what he was. Yeah. Whereas in Ralph, it's about diminishing, become far less than what you were.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Shrek, it's expanding his persona, creating a more virtuous person that's capable of overcoming greater obstacles and carrying a greater burden of responsibility. Yeah. And he emerges at the end as the king. And not only the king, but madly in love with the woman of his dreams, who is madly in love with him for the virtue that she sees in him.
Yeah.
She doesn't love his shortcomings. She loves his virtues.
And she's more loving and self-accepting of herself for loving him too. So they're making each other better. It's this very much like, we are better together. We are more than the sum of our parts thing, which is, again, not at all the message in kind of Wreck-It Ralph too. It's like, this part needs to diminish so this part can come up more.
Yeah. And so at the end of the day, it's still a hero's journey. It still is an expansive story of overcoming and self-improvement and living into a greater role and a greater cause at greater cost than where you started. Yeah. And, you know, it brings the antidote to the kingdom. And so through his expansion, it creates integration, and the kingdom is healed, and the people are no longer just responding to the placards of what they should and shouldn't do.
Right. Right.
And the fairy tale people all get to live together back in their homes and integrate with society. So it's ultimately this like beautiful, hopeful.
Well, and I think you can do all those things in this very like, because that is the archetypal story, right? And you can do all those things in this like contemporary where have these specific characters with their specific quirks and the specific jokes that they like, and it's very like, it connects more specifically with this audience, but it may not with like a different audience, but it still is about fitting into the archetype, right? And I think that's the thing that makes the whole thing work, is it's not and not go down just the deconstructionist route. Like, you can poke and make fun of all these things, and I think like you and I are both part of church communities, and it's easy to like poke at a church community or a faith practice or whatever, and you see kind of the goofy over the top things that like people will do, or ways like ideas can be like exaggerated, and you can poke fun at it but still also be in submission to the higher authority that's there and love it and value it, and whatever even critiques like can come from like a positive place with still loving it. And then there's the critiques of just like, no, we actually, I'm poking fun at this thing, but I'm actually not for it. I'm trying to do something bad for it, right? This feels like it's pushing at those ideas while still loving and caring about them at the same time.
Exactly. It's like the kind of like, you know, taking the piss, as, you know, the Brits would say, is I can do that with people that I love, who know that I have admiration for them and compassion for them. Like, you know that I want the best for you. And so when I poke fun at you and everything, it comes from a place of intimacy and admiration and love. Yeah. And I do feel like Shrek, the way it pokes fun at fairy tales, isn't in a way where it says, I hate these fairy tales and I wish they would die. Yeah. It's, we love these fairy tales, and because we love them, we get to mess with them. We get to take the piss a little bit. And, you know, Gingerbread Man comes back at the end and makes his Christmas Carol nod.
And he's Tiny Tim, right? Yeah.
He doesn't get melted into nothing and stomped on and eaten and then, shat out of a hippopotamus, which is what you would do if you truly hated the fairy tale of the Gingerbread Man.
Or I feel like what they would do is they would say, hey, the Ginger Man story, he's evolved beyond Christmas. Christmas is not his thing anymore, right? And his story means something more, because the whole point is we're trying to get away from Christmas and all that it represents, right? Yeah. So we just kind of make fun of whatever, and then he becomes more enlightened than that. I feel like that's what all the things are doing now, which is annoying. This feels more like he's being the goofy character that he is. He does the nursery rhymes with Farquaad, and then he shows up and he gives this Tiny Tim reference, and it's like, all right, it's fun. You still see like, oh yeah, there's a Christmas Carol reference there. And
it's like the jaded teenager that acts grumpy through Christmas, but ultimately, like, they're going to miss it if grandma doesn't insist on singing carols, And so it has some angst to it, but it pays, it reveals that deeper truth that, I can be angsty about all the fairy tales, but at the end of the day, I still want to be a knight who vanquishes a dragon, even if it's by making a friend of it.
Yeah.
And I still want to find my true love, even if she's an ogre. And if I'm an ogre, I at least want to be the best ogre I can be. And so I really don't think this one is all that cynical. The problem is the problem that we've talked about, where the thing that people run with is the Hakuna Matata song with the Let It Go song. The part they remember is the part that's actually deleterious to character.
Yeah.
And so if people take away from Shrek, screw all these fairy tale stories, then it's done a disservice, because what they should be taking away from it is, wasn't that fun to play with those? Now let's go watch Cinderella.
Yeah. Well, and hey, I like playing with these more. Maybe I should also be more well in tune with Cinderella and Beauty and the Beast and Snow White and these archetypal princess stories if I really want to understand the jokes behind Fiona. If you really want to know and understand that and be able to play with and make those jokes, because making jokes like that is fun, you have to know and have the knowledge behind those things, which is what Shrek does so well. I do feel like, you brought up the angsty teenager during Christmas, right? Who's still annoyed when grandma. I feel like the criticisms of this movie is the grandma who really values this tradition being don't F with my tradition. This is because I do think that if it's a movie about borders and who gets to do what, this is kind of shaking those up. And I think that small c conservative instinct is I just want to keep the borders right where they're supposed to be. And this is kind of pushing back at those. And that's uncomfortable for me, right? Now the ogre's the bad guy, or now it's you're letting words like hell and damn into a kid's story, and I don't like where that's going, and it's gonna make all these things, right? And I think there's a healthy tension between those two instincts that I think this movie actually does really well.
Right.
But I could see someone making the argument well, this is the start of you letting those words into the kids movies, and now all of a sudden, where are the borders, where are the boundaries on that? We can just kind of let anything in, and more adult themes coming into children's movies that shouldn't be there, and they movies have largely gone in that way.
Yeah, although what's funny is every animated film that comes out right now is a PG rated movie, even Trolls.
Yeah.
You go back and you look at PG rated films from when we were kids,
Airplane,
and it was The Never-Ending Story, Goonies, and dark, scary, violent stuff. So in a weird way, even though it seems like maybe this is the beginning of eroding at these things, it actually kind of wasn't. In a lot of ways, things have sanitized more. But I do want to talk about what you said about the tension, that this movie works because of the tension, and it lives in that tension. But when there is no more tension, when one side has been completely erased, then there's no more tension. And so where does this movie live? And so I'm interested to see what Shrek 5 is like.
Yeah.
And frankly, to actually watch 2, 3, and 4 all the way through, because the Puss in Boots movies are spinoffs from Shrek.
Yeah.
And they're awesome.
Yeah.
Both of them are awesome, especially The Last Wish. The Last Wish was...
And I haven't seen those, so we should get to those at some point. But Puss in Boots, that's an ancient archetypal story too, which I didn't even realize until being introduced to it through Shrek, right? And it's let me go back and see what that's like. So I hope people have that experience here.
Yeah. And so those would be interesting dives. So sorry, go ahead.
No, I because we're looking at the time, want to get to villain comeuppance with Farquaad getting eaten by the dragon at his own wedding.
Perfect. I mean, everything that he sought to control and to destroy turns back on him and literally consumes him. Yeah. And
because he didn't go out to fight the dragon. He sent knights to do it on his behalf with the joke some of you will die, but that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make, right? So you see he's in this tongue-in-cheek way, but he's ruthless. He's willing to just he doesn't have to do any of the work himself. He'll just throw other people out to do it for his own aggrandizement. He's not earned any of the virtue, and he wants all the roles himself. And then he's got no ability as he's about to get the thing he wants, seemingly, the dragon of chaos devours him.
Right. Well, and it's also such a great play on Napoleon, because Napoleon said, "I spend lives by the millions," I think is the quote. And he's willing to, like, I'll spend lives, and he wants to control everything. So it is interesting that it is the dragon that is chaotic, and it's even a female dragon, since the feminine is more archetypally chaotic. So it's all just this chaos comes and goes, like, enough of your order. And then sure enough, the people are cheering and applauding and enjoying things that they aren't supposed to.
If he as the tyrant represents order out of control, the dragon, the feminine dragon, represents chaos out of control, and that becomes the balance, and it's got to devour it.
Yep. And it works out perfectly. And then everyone's happier with him out of the way.
Well, so he's out of the way, and then Shrek, who has managed that balance of chaos and order, which maybe you could say this movie trying to balance the tension between that conservative instinct, but also that, like, that liberal instinct to want to push back on that and poke fun at that. Like, it holds that balance, then the kingdom can be in harmony.
That's right. Yeah. It's the integration.
Yeah.
It's the integration of the masculine and the feminine. It's the integration of those elements within Shrek, where he's, faced his inner demons. He's learned to make friends with a talking donkey. He's learned to, be friends with the dragon that he was supposed to destroy. He's looked into the abyss, and he's integrated all those things. And so the kingdom is healed. And so at the end of the day, Shrek is just a very vulgar, fart joke telling of the knight that saves the princess. And delivers it from the evil king. It's the exact same beautiful archetypal story, just with this fun setting.
And the kingdom's in harmony, and we can wrap it up with Smash Mouth covering the monkeys.
That's right. Which is great. Love
and I think there was a fun thing a lot of movies in this era did, where it's like, all right, the kingdom's been saved, let's party and let's end on a dance number or
totally.
The
like denouement is just like dance party.
Which was a lot of fun in this one.
And one last note is, the other interesting thing about this movie is that it is completely responsible for Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah coming back into the cultural.
I mean, another song that came on this one that just
And the song is incredible, and it had been buried. Nobody had heard it. Nobody knew about it. And this came out, and it works
really well in this story at the time. A bunch of covers came of it. I didn't even think about that, crediting Shrek for bringing that one back, but it was the first one, and then you heard it everywhere after that.
Of all the properties to do it, for any of all the artists, it's Leonard Cohen back rocketing to the top of the charts for this like sleeper hit. It's just a beautiful song, on all levels. And again, it's a beautiful song with Leonard Cohen's vocals tilted just sort of off, because when Jeff Buckley does it, it's just insanely beautiful. But with Leonard Cohen's sort of like awkward lilt, like his very unique vocal quality, it takes this unbelievably beautiful song and just sort of like just twists it a little bit like all fairy tales. So it's just awesome.
So this was a fun one, and I definitely think like we say this about a lot of them. Like, go back, and if you've listened to this, like, go back and rewatch the movie, watch it with your kids, notice some things you haven't noticed before. I think Shrek is surprising how much is there, just given it's goofy and a bunch of gags and all that. But there's a lot, like this tension and all that. It's kind of playing with the whole time. I think when you notice that, it makes it a lot of fun to watch. So we didn't even touch on like how great the voice casting is as well. I guess it's just a theme that like all these movies you get some like celebrities, but and it is like the four main ones: Mike Myers, Eddie Murphy, Cameron Diaz, John Lithgow. They're rock stars in all their roles, but it doesn't feel like they're just doing casting celebrities in these voice actors roles. Like
it doesn't feel like stunt casting at all.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and DreamWorks is so good about that generally. They figured out how to do stunt casting without doing stunt casting.
Yeah, that's great. So that's Shrek, everyone. Thanks for being with us on this one.
Yep. Thanks, y'all.
We'll see you next time. Well, everyone, that was Micah and I discussing Shrek. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for sticking to the end of this episode and finishing with us. Please, another reminder, go ahead and leave us a review, leave us some comments. We usually post on our YouTube some questions to kind of help engage with, get the conversation started. Would love to hear your thoughts on those. if you haven't already, and let us know some other movies you want us to discover. Also, by this point, we have a whole library of some great movies and some great discussions that are going to help you see these movies that you watch with your kids in some deeper ways. So go back and check out some old episodes as well. Thanks for being with us always on Story Dads, and we'll see you next time.